Hello, Noelle. Hi, Navpreet. Good to see you again. Hi, Elisa. Hey, Charnija. Welcome. Hi, Brian. Good to have you. Hi, Joe. Yay, good. We have a nice little crowd. Hello, Danielle. So good to be here with you all. We're probably going to have kind of a smallish crowd. So I feel like maybe you came expecting this would be huge, and it's not going to be huge. It's going to be a little small. And I think that will be really nice. I would love if everyone could say hello in the chat. That's going to be the primary way that y'all can communicate with me tonight. You can chat to everyone. It's kind of fun maybe to see where folks are, or you can chat just to me. And I would love for you to tell me, where are you geographically? You are so welcome, Elisa. Where are you geographically, and where are you in your GRE studies? So where are you physically, and then where are you in your path of GRE studies? Cool. Are you char with a cha, or like char with a soft CH, like a hard CH or a soft CH? Yay. Cool. Yeah, the English spelling is so crazy with pronunciation, like especially the like CH's, A's, like all over the place. Lisa, I grew up outside of Boston. Very cool. Yay, Joe. I like Pennsylvania. I'm in New York, but I got a lot of friends from Pennsylvania. Lots of Pennsylvania transplants in New York. Cool. So a lot of folks are new, which is exciting. Yay, Montreal. I love Montreal. Such a beautiful city. Vancouver also. Oh, Vancouver, Washington. I don't know Vancouver, Washington, but I'm guessing it's also quite pretty. West Coast. Chicago. A bunch of my friends just went to Chicago. They were all like so delighted. I should go visit Chicago. It sounded so cool. Welcome. All right. If you have not yet, let me know. Where are you geographically, and where are you in your GRE studies? Hi, Joy. Hi, Abideme. We are going to be a small group. So let me know those two things. It looks like we have a lot of folks who are kind of new, so that's exciting. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this free prep hour is going to run. So we will potentially do some problems. And if we do, they will be from this book, which is a great source of practice problems. But because we have been having relatively small crowds for these, and because it is fun for me to do it this way as well, I have been doing these as improvisatory Q&A. So what I'm going to ask is that everyone think about, like, what is one thing that you would like to see in today's session? A question, a topic, a subtopic, a type of problem, an issue you've been having, anything. You have to sort of think and pick one that you think would be good. And then I will collect everyone's responses, and I will try to structure our time together so that I can address everything that everybody wants in the hour. And I usually can do it. And so hopefully that will be the case tonight. So say hi in the chat. Oh, combination versus permutation. All right. I actually think I have a method for that you're going to like. So we're going to do potentially some. I might do that at the very end because I don't want to freak out people who are just starting with the super advanced math. Yes. Yeah. Let me know if you'd like, Navpreet, what your test date is for your second sitting, if you know. Cool. And Navpreet, if you have any more like specific sort of granular stuff within that broader topic, let me know. We'll definitely touch on that, I am sure. How common is combinatorics? Combinatorics is not yeah, I haven't done math in years. That's a good issue. Combinatorics is not super common. It is still a rare topic. That has not really changed. And I think sometimes we do get a little bit like over focused on some of the harder things. Yes, Shar, you absolutely, if you enroll in a class with us, you will get a very detailed syllabus and study plan and lots of resources. If you're interested in what that class would be like, I am teaching a trial first session of our full 9-session course on this coming Monday. So like a week from today, I'm teaching a trial class. That might be a good thing to come to if you're thinking about a class. And in that class, I'll talk a lot about those resources. It's on our website. Maybe my colleague Jeff, he's here. Maybe he could drop that link in the chat for you to the trial class. Geometry tricks. Thanks, Jeff. So we've got geometry tricks, and my colleagues can put the link in the chat for everyone. And the new GRE. Yeah, good, Joe. I'm glad you have another question because yours was very specific and easy to answer. New GRE. And then let's see what we've got in the Q&A. Speed in word problems. That's a great one. Just generally problems in word problems. Vocab study tips. Cool. I have a follow-up question for you, Sho. Sho, on a scale of 1 to 10, how crucial do you feel vocab is for your GRE performance? Like how much of a priority is it for you? Because I think that might inflect how I answer that question. At home. Cool. In person. Anyone who has come in recently, I am collecting questions. So I've got one from you, Marietta, Omotunde. Anyone else I've missed? If you would like to ask a question or nominate a topic, I'm going to try to build all of these into our session today. All right. So here's what we are going to do. We are going to talk first about sort of some general test issues for newbies. Going to answer some core questions, and hopefully I'll have some tips that are helpful for more experienced people. Then we are going to talk about geometry. And as we talk about geometry, I'm going to fold in tips on how to prepare. And then the third thing that we are going to look at is we are going to look at word problem approaches. And at the very end, if time, I will go to combo versus permutation. That is because that is a little bit rare and more advanced. We'll see where we go. Awesome. Cool. Oh, and then I forgot. I wanted to call it 3A, intensive vocab study plan. Awesome. Just issue on the new GRE. All right, great. I love it. This is going to be our plan. We'll see how much we get through. Please, as we go, because we are a small group and because this is generally how all MPrep teachers teach, I want to be as responsive to you as I can be in this format. And so please, if something is not clear, if you have questions or want to follow up on anything, please ask. Don't be shy, because I bet if you have a question, somebody else has a question. And we'll appreciate your asking. Okay, so we're going to start with the general test questions that I got asked. At home versus in person, which is a great one. What is the difference? Is there a bonus for doing one or the other? And we're going to talk about the new short test and how beneficial it's going to be for all of us. So the new short test, which is launching this weekend, the 22nd, is going to be the new day for the short test. Very exciting. Okay, so the new short test, I'm actually going to start with that one. The new short test is, Navpreet, it's just the first session of our full course. So it's like all foundational intro, how the course works, but also like foundational quant strategies, foundational verbal strategies, getting started with studying, all that good stuff. New short test, this launches this week. It is now only 2 hours. So key differences are there is no experimental section. So good. There is only the issue essay. So there's only one essay. There is no break. It is all one stretch unless you have extended time. And there is there are fewer questions. There are 27 verbal and quant, 27 quant, which is down from 40. So the format, those are the things, the main differences. The format is very much otherwise the same, like same question types, same content, all of that. So if you've been preparing for the old test, everything that you've done is going to transfer. You're just going to have to adjust to the shorter format. In my experience this far, and this is very new, this just got announced at the start of the summer, but in my experience this far with my tutoring students who've taken the short form and some former course students who've taken the short form practice test, no one's taken the official test yet. I'm going to take it as soon as it comes out, and then hopefully next free prep hour I can report back on that. But most people seem to be doing a little better on the short form, which is not surprising to me. So for anyone who has struggled with fatigue, with like nerves and anxiety, and things like that, like if anyone has extended time, I think also this is going to make for a much more humane testing experience. You know, when I work with folks who have 2.0 time, it's like, that's an 8-hour test. That's crazy. So I think there's going to be a lot of benefits. The other differences will continue to unfold. So those are my quick thoughts on the short test. Happy to answer follow-up questions about that if folks would like. I think overall it's good news. At home versus in person. So basically this is like completely a question of personal preference. There is no right answer or wrong answer which you should take. Scores are the same, count the same, you know, schools see them the same. You don't get bonus points for doing one versus the other. They truly are equivalent. So when I advise people on how to make this choice, I have them think about 3 things. If you take the in-person test, then you need to use an erasable surface for your scratch work. So you need to figure out, how do I feel about this? If you go to a test center, it is pencil and paper. They give it to you. It is unlined white paper. It is not a lot. Usually people need to ask for more. So that's the first thing. You need to think about the surface you're going to work on. Second thing you need to think about is, what is your at-home environment like? I live in New York City. My internet is unreliable and my at-home environment is loud. I like it. I like the loud, but you know, for example, if it were 8 years ago and I was trying to score qualify to get this job, I would definitely go to a test center because I know my at-home environment, including your internet and computer situation. You need to consider that. You cannot use a work computer. Most work computers have software on them that is incompatible with ETS's testing software. So you need to have a working laptop that is not a work laptop. Good at, you know, quiet, you work well at home. And then 3, I think, is just like, what is best for you? Do you like the stimulation of in-person? Do you hate the bureaucracy of in-person? Do you sort of feel more relaxed at home? Do you feel more distracted at home? And these are questions that are very personal. So I see some people do well with one. I see some people do well with the other. Some people are kind of fine with both. It doesn't really matter. I guess the final thing to consider is the time of day the place and time of day. Fall in-person test centers tend to get busy. And if you really want to get your date and time, it's good to book a little in advance. At-home test, online test, very very unpredictable. Elisa, that's tricky. And I think, you know, many people take this test twice. And so I think for you, I'd say like pick one and do that and see how it goes. And then if it's not good, try the other. I will say the erasable surface is easier to work with than I thought it was going to be. If you get like a good surface and you practice with it and get a fine tip done. Cool. We only offer GRE for MBA these days. So all our classes are GRE for MBA. The main difference, I think, when we offered different options was that GRE for MBA has more quant. It goes more deeply into all the quant. And it's fine if you're not applying for an MBA. You can still take it. I often have a couple students in each class who are not applying for MBAs. Cool. All right. Those are my core test facts. Any questions about this, any of this stuff? Then we're going to get to geometry. Yeah, at home, you cannot use scrap paper. At home, you need to use either a small whiteboard or like a laminated sheet of paper. The GMAT always requires that people use laminated paper, even at test centers. So I'm going to put in the chat, GMAT practice pad and fine tipped markers. That's the thing that I would use for mine. When I did take the at-home test, that's what I used. It's a legal size and it has grids, like graph paper grid on it, which is good for me because I have really bad handwriting. So that actually has helped me. Yeah, it's helped me be better with small errors. And the other thing that's nice is you can use the erasing as a timing strategy, right? So you can be like, I know I can do 5 quant problems before I have to erase. 5 quant problems should take like 10 minutes. So every time I erase, I'm going to like check in with the clock, see where I'm at. And then the erasing can become like a nice way to sort of reset, calm down, relax your shoulders, cue yourself to do that stuff, which is very helpful. So I thought the erasable surface would be terrible for me, and then it wasn't. So yes, Napreet, I will do my best with that. So at the end of the exam, you have the option. You can do, first, you can either cancel your scores or keep and see. So you can't see them and then cancel them. I basically say, unless you are applying to law school, keep the score. Law school is a little different because they ask that you report all times you've sat the GRE. But for anyone who's not applying to law school, I say always keep them. Most people are wrong about how they did. I cannot tell you the number of times I've had a student say, I thought I did terribly, and then I got the score that I wanted. And the opposite can be true too. Sometimes when we think we've really killed it, we have not. In fact, my worst standardized test ever was a GMAT where I was like, I did so good. I finished early. Should not have finished early. So that's the first thing. And then if you like the score, you can send it for free to 4 schools. If you aren't sure if you want to send it to schools, you can wait and pay a fee later. And if you're applying to more than 4 schools, you will have to pay for any beyond those original 4. So keep the score and see it. If it's, you like it, you want to use it, just go ahead and send it to your 4 top choices. Go into the test with a list of the 4 top choices that you want to send it to. Go ahead and send it. And then if you think like, oh, I might take the GRE again, I don't love this score, I don't want schools to maybe see it, I'm not sure, wait. Unfortunately, you will then have to pay a fee, I think, of $30 per test for additional scores. But in the overall scheme of how expensive this process can be, it can be worth it to have that flexibility. Yeah. And I got one more question about scoring. So verbal and quant are both scored. There's a scaled score. So they calculate like what you get correct, and they use that in which sections, and they use that to create a raw score, and then they scale the scores so that the scores are normally distributed. Alisa, you can send it to more than 4, but you can only send it to 4 for free. So the reason why you only get 4 free cents is because ETS wants more of your money. Yep, there's not a better reason than that I can see. Navpreet, I think that once you applied, they will confirm that your application is complete. So yes, but that's something to sort of take up with the schools, with the admissions folks, I think. So scores are then scaled into a 130 to 170 range. And I think the median is like in the 150s. Look at the schools that you want to go to, look at what their median scores are. Then remember that a median is the middle, right? So half of people who apply are going to be a little below, half are going to be a little above. Some schools have minimum thresholds that you have to clear, but not all. So in these ranges, like I can't speak to what's a good score because it varies so wildly from like discipline to discipline, from school to school. These scores are also just one part of your application. So you'll want to consider, you know, what other strengths do you have? What other weaknesses? For some people, the test becomes more or less important for that reason. Great. All right. I probably can't give you specific advice on your situation just based on a score because there's a lot of factors that go into it and everyone's super different. But I'll think on that question. If I can do it, I will. Cool. All right. We can come back to some of these specific questions later. For now, I want to pivot and I want to talk a little bit about geometry. And we're going to do some geometry problems, and it's going to be fun. But I also want to use this as a moment to model how you might think about progressing in your studies. So I want to talk about geometry, and I hope I can offer something to everyone who's we're at different places in our studying as a group. But I want to sort of show when I think about like, I'm starting from nothing, I haven't done math in a long time. I hated math. When I finished high school, I was like, I will never, ever, ever, ever do math ever again. I did music theory instead of math in college. Irony is the law of the universe. Now I teach people math. Really not what I expected. So I feel like I'm the poster child for you can hate math and you can get to a good place with GRE Quant. You can love math and get to a good place with GRE Quant. Also a good route. So I'm going to show you how I think about building up. The subtopic I'm going to focus on today are right triangles, because I think that right triangles are a really important core topic of geometry where people are often like not super solid on the rules. So I'm going to talk about right triangles, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with stage 1, which I think of as just like get the mechanics down. Then we're going to go to stage 2, which is like get basic kind of or GRE like problems down. And then we're going to get to stage 3, which is going to be to escalate difficulty. And then the stage that we probably won't get to is to improve speed and efficiency. But I will speak about maybe that stage and how that stage of practice works. But these are what I think of as the 4 stages. And you may be in a place where you're like in stage 3 in some topics, right? Like I'm just working on those hard algebra topics, but you're still in stage 1 and others. So for each of the topics, they think about building up this basis. So we are going to start with a couple important right triangle rules. I'm going to draw some triangles. So right triangles. The first thing that I think is really important is all of the rules that we are going to discuss only apply to right triangles, right? So these are rules that only apply to triangles where there is a 90-degree angle. That is always going to be the largest angle in the triangle because all the angles in a triangle sum to 180. So we're going to be talking about things where this is the case. So in a right triangle, we have a long side, which is our hypotenuse. And we have 2 short sides, which are legs. And we'll call the legs A and B, and then the hypotenuse is C. And we have a really helpful formula to connect these sides, to relate the lengths of these sides. And that is if I square both of the legs and add those numbers together, I will get the hypotenuse squared. So let's now, first stage, I've learned the fact. Maybe you read it in a book, you watch it in a video. In this case, I'm talking you through it. Next stage is, let me practice that fact. So if I have a right triangle with sides of, let's say 2 and 6, what is the hypotenuse going to be? No, the hypotenuse will never be called a leg. The longest side is always the hypotenuse, and that is what it will be called. The GRE tries to trick with us by playing with the scale of these diagrams, but it doesn't and cannot just say things that are flat out wrong or misleading. So yeah, everyone try figuring out what is this side. Share in the chat when you get it. Awesome. I like it. So seeing a lot of good answers. While we're doing this, I'd say, all right, I know a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The sides on either side of the right angle, I think that's something else I should have pointed out. Those are going to be my a and my b. So I'll say 2 squared plus 6 squared equals c squared. C is this missing side. That becomes 4 plus 36 equals c squared. 40 equals c squared. And then to get rid of the squared, I take the square root of both sides and I get square root of 40 equals c. And I can also simplify the square root of 40 to 2 square root 10. So cool, we've learned a fact. Sometimes what happens when you learn one thing, right, is you turn up something else. Oh, also there's these square roots in this, and I don't feel comfortable with those. So it may be, if you sit down one day, you say, I'm going to do my mechanics stage for right triangles, you also need to go and kind of simultaneously do your mechanics stage for exponents and roots. In our class, for example, we try to sequence things so that it builds. We do geometry maybe a little later for this reason, but you can kind of do this concurrently in your studies too. So I practice my fact, and maybe, if you felt a little uncomfortable with that, I would say do another one, do a couple more, just sort of draw triangles, pick two, so, make a hypotenuse, make a leg, find the missing leg, make 2 legs. You can just draw the shapes or make up versions of the shapes over and over and practice these mechanics. And that can be a really great way to drill. So I start with that. I get comfortable with my facts. The other thing that I then there's 3 other things that I want to say about triangle facts, because I think these are really neglected often neglected triangle facts that are incredibly important. And these are what they are. One of these is called the Pythagorean triples. Don't need to remember that name. This is the Pythagorean theorem. We don't even really need to remember that name. But Pythagorean triples. So as we saw, right, sometimes we get these wacky square roots in triangles. In Pythagorean triples, we get really nice integer sides. So we have 3, 4, the legs are 3 and 4, and the hypotenuse is 5. Or the legs are 5 and 12, and the hypotenuse is 13, 8, 15, 17. I think you're getting the gist. These are the most common ones. I think there are a couple others, but these are the ones that I have most often seen on the test. 7, 24, 25. So for example, if I have a triangle and I draw my legs, it will let me do that. Thank you. It's a terrible triangle. Sorry. I draw my triangle, right? And if I see there's a hypotenuse of 5 and a leg of 4, I want to have these memorized. So I'm like, oh yeah, there's that. So then this needs to be 3. I want these to be super sharp. We might also see these as multiples, though. That's where it gets a little bit tricky. So I also want to get to a point where I can recognize if this is 26 and this is 10, what is this missing side? That's my question to you. Using the Pythagorean triples, can you figure out if I have a hypotenuse of 26 and one of my legs is 10, what is the other leg? Omochunde, you have the right idea, but think about like which multiple it is in this, if that makes sense. Other direction. You want to go bigger. Yeah, yep. You guys got it. It's 24. Love it. So here I see, oh, 26. That's 2 times 13. 10 is 2 times 5. It's a doubling of this. And this is 24. So I think when you're in this stage, the two things that are of like, I'm just getting these mechanics down, right? One is to create little drills, whether it's writing algebraic equations or drawing triangles and filling in the dimensions. You can probably find some worksheets online, like, you know, this would be maybe like middle high school kind of level math worksheets might have this too for this drill stage of just get the facts down, get the mechanics down. Create little drills, make flashcards. I cannot overstate the importance of this because I see sometimes what happens is people get really deep into their studies. And this is a thing I work with a lot in tutoring. I do some like long-term tutoring with people and get really deep into their studies, and they learn a lot of GRE strategies, and they understand how the test works, and they understand the timing, and they do all this test specific work, but they haven't really taken the time to sort of do this mechanics work in math. And what happens then is they're like doing sort of beautiful setup of word problem equations, which we'll talk about, and then they are not executing the algebra very well because they just need to drill more with algebra. So that can be fixed, but I think it's great for folks who are starting out. Think about like, let me just get this really basic mechanics stuff comfortable. That's often the most important thing for people, especially if you haven't done math in a long time. Just give yourself some time to refresh. And it does take time and it does take repetition, but it is also, I think, you know, something you can definitely, you know, you can, even someone like me who is naturally not good at math, like with some diligent effort, you can get to a place where you feel pretty good about GRE math. There is, I know at the beginning it doesn't always seem this way, but there is a limited amount. So that's stage 1. We have our mechanics down. Now we are going to try to look at an example of stage 2, where we are going to look at some triangles problems from the 5-pound book. And one of the things about the 5-pound book that I like, this is a book that we make, is that it is organized by topic. let's see here, all the different topics. And then these chapters start easy and they get quite hard. So this allows you in this work to kind of target difficulty as well. Oh, there's one more triangle fact that I need to share before we do a problem. And that is one, hopefully, will be familiar to some of us, maybe a refresher for someone who hasn't done math in a while. If I want to find the area of the triangle, area of the triangle equals 1/2 base. Oh, I wanted to do this in a different color. The area of the triangle equals 1/2 base times height. And the base and the height are at right angles to each other. So in a right triangle, the base and the height are just the legs. Gets a little more complicated in non-right triangles, but we're not going to mess with non-right triangles today. So that's the other fact that we need. Okay, so now let's try this is problem 4 in the chapter we're going to do. So it's not super complex, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily easy. We're going to try to put together a couple of our triangle rules and solve this problem. So go ahead and try this. I'm going to step off camera for a minute while everyone does this, so you don't feel like I'm staring at you while you're solving. Chat me when you get an answer. Noelle, Show, Kume, Brian, looks good. Danielle, don't forget the 1/2 part. Yeah. One way to think of it is like a square, a rectangle would be just like base times height. And then a triangle is literally just like a square rectangle cut in half. And that, if that's useful, maybe a way to remember. One way to remember things is to connect them to things you already know. Nice. So here we've gone into stage 2, right? In stage 1, we just had like one rule at a time. Now, stage 2, we're doing a GRE like problem. Bye, Jeff. Thanks for being here. I miss co-teaching. When you have sorry, my colleague just left to distract me for a sec. When you have a GRE like problem, we often have to layer or combine multiple rules or steps. A lot of geometry problems are about just like combining 2 different rules. So in this problem, first I need to find the missing side, right? Because I have my base, but I don't have my other leg. I only have the hypotenuse, so I need my height. And when I start a geometry problem, I often like to just write down the relevant rules. Actually, for many quant problems, I begin by writing down the relevant rule, because then as I find information, I can just plug it in. So I can say, all right, I know that I have 1/2 times the base of 12, but I still need to find the height. Oh, there's a 12 and a 13. That reminds me of my Pythagorean triple. So that's the fastest way to do this problem. But if you forgot that, you can say, oh, I can use my Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus 12 squared equals 13 squared. And either way, I'm going to get a size of 5 here, so I'll plug that in. 1/2 times 12 is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. There is a calculator on the test, but something like this, you want to be able to do pretty quickly. In your head, it is good to maybe get a times tables game. Many of us have not used times tables in a while, and it will save you time. So I start with that, and I want to first feel comfortable with this level of problem. And maybe that's where you're at today. You're like, that was good. That was a good challenge for me, having not done math in many years and come to this. That is totally fine. Or if you're feeling good, let's go and see just like a slight, maybe let's look at one kind of harder problems, and then think about what happens as you scale. So here now is going to be a trickier problem. If you've been with the GRE for some time, you can just go ahead and start this. If you are new, please let me tell you a little bit about this format so that it does not feel insane. So this is called quantitative comparison. And quantitative comparison is where you have to say which quantity is bigger. And if you choose A, it's always quantity A. If you choose B, it's always B. If you choose C, I think you get the theme. It's always C. And if you choose D, you can't tell. And if you come to the trial class on Monday, this is like what we're going to do on Monday in math. We're going to talk about these because these are tricky for all of us starting out. Because no one does that, right? No one does quantitative comparison in school. It's just the GRE. So here, again, if anyone needs a hint, think about this number in quantity B, right? Like, what would be true if X were 90 degrees? Does that match the info that we have? So this is now we're escalating difficulty because we have to combine a couple of rules, but we also have to be like a little sneaky and a little strategic. So we've gone beyond the land of like straightforward math calculation into something that requires a little bit more like strategic thinking and problem solving. And that's stage 3. It's like stage 3 is when we start to add that in. Folks who are like, this is good, this is comfortable, I love it, I would say this is like a moderate problem. So then there's sort of like a stage 3A where it's like you get into the hard, super hard stuff. And that usually is when you sort of start to get to like, I think until you're scoring maybe like 156, 157, usually the biggest reward is just to focus on math foundations and core problem solving, like easy, medium level problems. Then if you're looking to get from like high 150s into 160s, that's where you start having to deal with the harder questions more. That's another general problem thing. All right, where are we at for time? Cool. I want to say something about word problems. So let me talk through this. So here, always I say, what if this is 90? Well, if this did equal 90, what would have to be true? Also in geometry, I always draw my shape on the screen, on the paper or the erasable surface. Even if the problem doesn't look super tricky to me, I always like to redraw it and label, and it just really helps me process the information, which is a big part of problem solving. So don't skimp on the early setup stages of problem solving. A lot of times people rush to the calculations. We'll talk about this with word problems. And that's a huge problem. Got to take your time with the setup, then the mechanics will go fast. So here, if it were 90 degrees, well, if it were 90 degrees, it would behave like a right triangle. It would follow the Pythagorean theorem. So let's find out, what do we get for the hypotenuse if the legs are 5 and 7? This is 25. This is 49. That means 74 equals c squared. So c equals square root 74. Oh yeah, that it matches, right? I have that there, I have that there. So they must be equal. This must be 90. Notice if this were like the square root of 79, then I would say, oh, it's got to be greater. If the hypotenuse were bigger than the right triangle hypotenuse, x would be bigger. If this were smaller, then the hypotenuse, then it would be smaller because we have a smaller hypotenuse. But in this case, they are equal. The answer is C. I developed this bad habit of not saying clearly what the answers to problems are. And so if you're in a class with me, you will probably have to remind me to just clearly state the answer. What I just did where I was like, if this happens there, if that happens in this place, that's also when you get to this, stage of when you are working on escalating difficulty, what I just did is a great trick. Like, what if this? Can I make the problem harder? Can I make the problem easier? Asking hypothetical questions about problems is actually, we did this huge project a few years ago on like what students who see big score improvement do. And one of the few like common themes was they ask a lot of hypothetical questions about the problems that they're solving. So that's my tip for that. When it comes to improving speed and efficiency, once you're like, I can do all the easy and medium problems, I can get to the right answer, I can do some hard problems, I can get to the right answer, then it's a lot about like written work and learning sort of like GRE shortcuts. And that again is something that you can find in most good courses and prep books, like from any sort of decent test prep provider. And that becomes kind of the final stage. Not written word, written work, sort of fine tuning stuff. So those are my thoughts on geometry for today, and on how you kind of think about getting back into math. So I would think about, like, if you're new, just think about, I'm going to take some time, I'm going to give myself plenty of time for this, and just get comfortable with the core math mechanics, with core, solving algebraic equations, geometry facts, number lines, positives, negatives, all those kind of core stuff. Just give yourself some time to get up to speed with those mechanics, then bring in the GRE stuff, the GRE like stuff. Cool. All right. Let's see. I want to see if I can check off everything on the list. So we've only done 2. We don't have a ton of time left, but I believe in us. I want to say something about the intensive vocab study plan. Look up at the Lightner box. That is the gold standard for learning vocab. I'm also pretty sure there is a free prep hour up on our YouTube channel in which probably someone else, but I think there's more than one in which someone, like, the whole session is about learning vocab. So Lightner box, gold standard, takes a lot of effort, but if you can commit, you can learn. I think about, if you can commit 4 to 5 hours a week, you can learn about 50 words a week. And 50, do not try to learn more than 50 per week. It is not really possible to do. It becomes counterproductive. You will achieve less if you aim too high. So sometimes less is more with vocab. Consistency over time is the most important thing. You just gotta, at the end of the day, it's gotta be something that you're gonna do every day for the duration. So it also has to be sustainable for you. So those are my quick tips on vocab. I think more detailed walkthroughs of that stuff are in the sort of free prep hour archive. And if you just want to look up a Lightner box, like, that is the best way to memorize anything. And the students I've had who've done it it has really had a big impact for them. So vocab can also be a helpful thing to do for, like, your future educational and professional life too. So it's, I think the fact that it's on the test is not ideal, but since it is, like, it is maybe one of the aspects of studying for the test that you can then use to help yourself out in other parts of your life too, which is nice. Yeah. All right. Word problem approaches. Let's talk about word problem approaches. So the first thing I want to say is, I think that you need to know, is your problem with word problems the translating, or is it the algebra, or is it both, right? Because every word problem has 2 components. I have to first translate from words into algebra. And then I have to translate, then I have to just do the algebra. So if you can, try some word problems and diagnose. Is it both? Is it one? Which of these do you need to focus on, both or one? Which needs your love? And 2 separate things to do. And then I would focus on them separately. So like do just some algebra drills with solving equations and systems of equations, and then do just some translation where you just take the problems and translate into sentences. We don't have time to do algebra today, but I think I can say like 3 things about translation and then maybe show you something in action that might be helpful. So translation, here's the thing. Read at the pace that you need to read at to comprehend comfortably. This is also true in verbal. Number one issue in verbal, or often number one issue in verbal, one of the easiest interventions to boost people's verbal scores is just don't read so fast. Everyone tries to read too fast on a screen. It's the thing our brains do, and we don't retain information as well when we read off screens. We don't understand it as well. We don't remember it as well. If you really want to learn something, read it on paper. This is a good thing for studying, right? Like it's good to do practice problems off the screen because it's a test on the screen. But if you're trying to learn content, like learn the math, learn stuff, do it off a paper book. It will go better. You'll remember it faster. You'll learn it better. This is true then when we have to work off a screen. We have to deliberately restrain ourselves, right? Like biological tendency to read too fast, plus we're being timed. We try to read too fast, and then we don't, then it just all falls apart, because there's, nothing. And we're stressed and we're exhausted. It's not going well. So read at the pace that you need to. I read word problems twice. I read just all the way to the end, what's here, and then I go back and I stop at each piece of punctuation and I translate. And then once I've done all of the translation, then I solve. Final tip, if you find that certain phrases are hard for you in translation, like a common example would be half as many. People hate half as many. I don't like half as many. Make a little dictionary for yourself, or little flashcards. Like, here's how I translate these common phrases. At least is less than or equal to, things like that can be helpful. So let me show you this process in action. I'm going to pull, if I were in a bolder mood, I would try to find a word problem I had never seen before, but I don't. If we had more than 8 minutes, I would try to do one bold, but I'm going to do one from the 5-pound book, so one that I have seen before. Maybe someday I'll do a free prep hour. Everyone can just bring a quant problem I've never seen, and I can try to solve them. That would be fun. All right, let's look at this one because this is one that people don't like. Or no, actually, let's look at a 2-variable. So we're going to look at number 23. And for the purposes of time, I'm just going to walk us through my little process. And actually, I'm going to show you 24 because it's a terrifying problem. I don't know if that's a good idea, but I'm going to show you like a really extreme example of translation. Just for fun. This is not a problem that I ever encourage anyone to feel like they have to be able to do. It's unrealistically hard. So I read it all the way through. Lou has 3 daughters, Wen, Mildred, and Tyla. My dog's name is Mildred. Maybe that's why I wanted to teach this. 3 years ago, when Lou was twice as old as Tyla, he was 30 years older than Mildred. Now he is 47 years older than Wen. In 4 years, Wen will be half as old as Tyla. What is the sum of the current ages of Lou and his 3 daughters? Wow, that's so much information. It makes me want to panic. I take a deep breath. Lots of steps, but no individual step's going to be terrible, right? So I'm just going to take it one step at a time. I actually like to start with a question. So I'll take the question. I'll take sum of the current ages. So that's going to be Wen plus Mildred plus Tyla plus Lou. And these represent their ages now. So I write down my goal, and I'm also really clear about what my variables represent. Awesome. 3 years ago. Okay, so 3 years ago, Lou is going to be L minus 3. And he was, that's an equal sign, twice as old as Tyla, who also is living 3 years ago. If there's a time change, has to apply to both. So that's my first equation. Next equation. And since I have 4 variables, I'm trying to write 4 equations. If I had 2 variables, I'd do for 2 equations, 3 variables, 3 equations. So 3 years ago, I'm still in L minus 3, and that's going to be Mildred 3 years ago plus 30. Now, so that's just Lou now, plain old L, he is 47 years older than Wen. So Wen plus 47. And in 4 years, so that's going to be W plus 4, Wen in 4 years, she will be half as old. That's the one people don't like. 1/2 of, as old as, you could mentally replace with of, 1/2 the age of Tyla, who is also living 4 years in the future at that time. I'm not going to do the algebra mechanics for this. It is too late on a Monday. It is too ugly. It is too gross. It is unrealistically difficult. But that's how like this process of like read it twice, one piece at a time, and then just do a bunch of them. Just get a bunch of word problems and just do this translation, because there's certain phrases and patterns that recur, right? So like they can be very intimidating at first, but if you just practice this step of like taking your time to read and to break down piece by piece, to just do one step at a time. That is my final piece of wisdom for word problems, is one step at a time. People try to do multiple steps all at once. And that becomes, you know, they're trying to write this equation and plug this other equation into it together, everything one step at a time. And that can really make these a lot less stressful too. Yeah, I think you're right, Joe. I think it should be L minus 3. I make a lot of careless errors. This has always been my major challenge in math my whole life, one of my major challenges. And I have a lot of thoughts on training that. So if anyone else is afflicted by careless errors, come to the trial class. We'll talk about it. Okay, what did I not get to? I did not get to combinations versus permutations. My suggestion for you is there is a good system for that. I think there is also a free prep hour on our YouTube channel, Manhattan Prep GRE YouTube channel. And I would look for like the combinatorics lesson. Basically, the way I, in brief, think about it is like, are the spots the same? Like, is the experience the same no matter where you're chosen? And that's when I do divide. That's a combination. Or are the spots different? Is the experience different? Do the spots have special names? Then I don't divide. That's a permutation. So I think, to me, that framework helps a little bit more than like, does order matter or not? Because like order is more useful when we have lines. If we're picking like a vice president and a co-president and a secretary, like that's also a permutation, but order is irrelevant there. So to me, this idea of like, are spots the same or not the same, is a more versatile way to conceive of that choice. Cool, yeah. It's a commonly requested topic, and I do really like the method that we use for it. I think it's much simpler than like the ways I remember being taught when I was doing this in school, because I have some very bleak memories of doing combinatorics in high school, like all of that. All right, my friends. Thank you for being here on a Monday night. I think I was able to answer many, if not all, of our questions. I hope everyone found at least one little nugget. I always want there to be like one little nugget in these for everyone. So I hope you found that. There's a ton of these on YouTube. Check them out. All different topics. You are so welcome. If you come to the class Monday, I'll see you on Monday. If not, good luck. Happy studying. Take the shorter test. It's going to be easier. Have a good night. Awesome. Hope to see you, Joe. You're welcome, not creep. Bye.